If you study fantasy football draft strategy, you probably know that the zero RB strat is one of the most popular in all of fantasy football. It involves avoiding the running back position for the first 4 to 5 rounds of your fantasy draft and focusing on it after that. I'm going to show you 5 running backs that are perfect for that range being drafted after the 4th round in fantasy drafts. Starting off, we have Kenneth Walker, running back for the Seattle Seahawks. There's a lot to like with Kenneth Walker, but a lot to be concerned about as well, especially with the surrounding Seattle offense. With Clint Kubiak now offensive coordinator, it looks like the team is looking for a more run-heavy approach, which is really good news for Walker. However, that offensive line was one of the worst in the entire NFL last year, both at pass and run blocking. That was a major hurdle in his way in 2024, and he struggled both with injuries and efficiency. A lot of his efficiency woes were because of that offensive line. Fast forward to this offseason, we're in the middle of the first round of the 2025 NFL Draft. The Seattle Seahawks selected Gray Zabel, offensive guard from North Dakota State. This guy is a really good prospect with a high floor that I expect to be an instant impact starter for the Hawks. His presence on the interior of this offensive line should help drive things in the run game for Kenneth Walker. It was good to see them invest in that part of the offense. When you look at the film, it's pretty easy to see how good Kenneth Walker is, but that talent is also backed up with advanced stats from PFF. First off, just looking at the box score stuff, he was way more involved as a receiver this past season than he has been throughout his entire career, and he played only 11 games. Not to mention, in those 11 games, he managed to finish top 30 at the running back position for fantasy. But anyways, let's get into these PFF stats I was talking about. Walker, again, in this poor offensive environment, had a 91.4 PFF rush grade this past season, which was good enough for 4th in the entire NFL. That speaks volumes to how good of a player Walker is in a vacuum. Not only that, but among running backs with at least 50 carries, Walker ranked 3rd in PFF's elusiveness rating. He is making tacklers miss all the time. If Walker can stay healthy and if the situation around him improves, I think you're getting a high floor player. You have to remember he's never scored less than 7 rushing touchdowns in a single season in his entire career. And that's including his 11-game season, which was shortened by injury this past year. I think Kenneth Walker is a great bet to be awesome in fantasy football and is a sleeper to finish as a top 10 running back in 2025. Next up, we have Amarian Hampton, rookie running back for the Los Angeles Chargers, drafted 22nd overall from the University of North Carolina. Hampton was one of my favorite prospects in the entire draft. For me, he was the second best running back just behind Ashton Jeanty from Boise State. Hampton has a unique blend of size, elusiveness, and power. The most prominent of these is the strength and power behind his runs. He is a punishing runner, capable of just trucking over defenders with ease. He is so good at that, and that's one of the biggest parts of his game. But he is very underrated with his elusiveness and as a receiver. He's also great on the goal line. He punches in pretty much every opportunity that's given to him, so that rushing touchdown upside is obviously there. But again, some of his best traits, that strength, that contact balance that just keeps him up after defenders try to knock him down. And don't sleep on the fact that he can make defenders miss in open space when given the chance. I think he's a true 3-down running back and will emerge as the starter for the Chargers by the end of the season. Don't forget how the trends work in fantasy football. Rookie running backs tend to break out towards the end of the fantasy football season. I think it's going to be the exact same for Amarian Hampton in 2025. And if you're still concerned about Najee Harris, let me put your fears to rest. The Chargers did sign veteran running back Najee Harris to a 1-year, $5.25 million contract in free agency this offseason from the Pittsburgh Steelers. But considering how little money is attached to this deal, as well as the short-term nature of the contract, I'm willing to bet they're not putting all their eggs in one basket, expecting Najee Harris to be a huge contributor. I'm sure he's going to take a lot of carries, but at the end of the day, they drafted Hampton to be their future, and if he can contribute from day one, he's going to. Remember, this is an offensive coaching staff that loves to run the ball with Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman, offensive coordinator. These guys run the ball all the time and they're really good at it. Remember the backgrounds, Greg Roman from Baltimore. He was the Ravens offensive coordinator a few years back, and Jim Harbaugh, obviously the head coach at Michigan, where they had a violently effective rushing attack. Hampton's their guy. They went and drafted him. I believe in him this year in fantasy football, and you should too. Next up, we have one of my favorite targets at ADP, and that's Quinn Judkins, rookie running back for the Cleveland Browns. That's right, we have another rookie on this list. There's a couple things to like about Quinn Judkins and his fantasy football profile just early on. First off, just with the draft capital, among the guys with similar ADP that are also rookie running backs, he was drafted the highest out of any of them in the actual NFL draft. He was drafted with the 4th pick in the 2nd round. And these rookie running backs I'm talking about with similar ADP are guys like Travion Henderson, Caleb Johnson, RJ Harvey, and Judkins was selected earlier than any of them in the real-life draft. He also has the least competition of any rookie running back this year besides Ashton Jeanty and RJ Harvey. There's no immediate threat to take away carries right off the bat like there is in New England with Ramondre Stevenson with Travion Henderson. This is also somewhat the case with Amarian Hampton, but like I said, I'm not concerned about the fact that I think he will be the starter by the end of the season. Judkins as a prospect was one of the most polarizing in the entire NFL draft. You saw some really good traits out there. He has elite burst and really good physicality for the position. He also tested as one of the most athletic running backs in the entire draft class at the NFL Combine. At 221 pounds, this dude is just a freak athlete that has been given a great chance to be the starting running back right out of the gate for the Cleveland Browns. However, there are a few things about his prospect profile that aren't the best. His vision at the line of scrimmage is questionable at times. Sometimes he just goes with the play and is afraid to cut back. And this happens even when there's obviously guys in the gaps ahead of him. He just ends up running straight into defensive linemen even when there's a cutback lane available. He also pretty obviously lacks home run speed. He has trouble finishing long runs, and that's not something you want to see out of your long-term running back. He was my 5th ranked running back in this year's draft class, so I did like him a good bit, but I will admit that there are things that he could work on and flaws in his game. That being said, I still think Judkins is a really good prospect with a very high ceiling in the NFL, and the fact that Cleveland is most likely going to have a lackluster passing offense, having to lean on that run game is a very strong thing for his fantasy outlook. Cleveland also has a pretty decent offensive line. Again, it's not elite by any means, but it'll suffice for year one for Quinn Judkins. Also kind of underrated. I think he has one of the coolest names in the NFL. Just thought I'd throw that out there. Overall, Quinn Judkins is set up for success in year one with the Cleveland Browns with no major competition to take away carries. Say what you will about him as a prospect, he has a golden opportunity to take a massive step forward and be a great fantasy football running back for 2025. I find myself drafting him a lot in the 5th round when he's available in my fantasy drafts. I think that's such a good value for the kind of player he is and the situation he's walking into. Call me crazy, but I think the Browns are going to utilize the running back they spent the 36th overall pick of the 2025 NFL Draft on. If you made it this far in the video, don't forget to subscribe to the Fantasy Trading Room YouTube channel. We put out content like this every week to help you get ready for your fantasy drafts and dominate your leagues. Next up, we have Dave Montgomery, veteran running back for the Detroit Lions. Though Montgomery missed time this past season with injury late in the year, he has proven himself to be one of the safest options in all fantasy football over the last few seasons with the Lions. He's carved out a role in this thunder and lightning backfield duo with superstar running back Jahmyr Gibbs. And if he can stay healthy, he's going to reprise the exact same role this year in 2025. His PPR stock also skyrocketed because he had more receiving work this year than he has in a very long time. He caught a lot of passes, and that boosted his points per game a whole bunch in PPR formats. If that continues into this season, and he plays a full 17 games, he is going to be one of the most valuable running backs in all of football. Like, if he stays healthy, he could easily finish in the top 15 of fantasy running backs. If you're getting that in the 4th round of your fantasy draft, that's a steal. I know there is some concern after Lions' longtime standout center Frank Ragnow retired this offseason, but I still think the Lions have a very effective offensive line that can help out this running game and create holes for Gibbs and Montgomery. They still have Taylor Decker, Graham Glasgow, and Penei Sewell, and I'm a big fan of rookie Tate Ratledge as a run blocker. And here's the biggest thing for me. The fact that David Montgomery is going even close to Bears running back DeAndre Swift in fantasy football drafts is astounding to me. Montgomery is miles ahead of Swift as far as talent goes, and his situation is far better as well. I wouldn't touch DeAndre Swift for the 10-foot pole in fantasy football leagues this year, and neither should you. Dave Montgomery is the way safer option and is going at a similar ADP in the 4th or 5th round. And finally, our last player on this list, we have Jordan Mason, newest member of the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings went out and traded for Mason from the San Francisco 49ers in exchange for a 6th round pick. The 49ers didn't get a ton out of that deal, and I think Minnesota got a very good player in return. Sure, you can use the argument that it's a very running back friendly system in San Francisco, but you cannot deny how much talent Mason displayed as a runner in 2024 in relief of Christian McCaffrey, who was struggling with Achilles tendonitis. Mason showed impressive speed and physicality at the running back position as well as elusiveness. He was a big play threat anytime he touched the football and could score a touchdown from any part of the football field. Backing this up with some advanced stats, Jordan Mason had a 36.9 breakaway run percentage in 2024, which was 8th in the entire NFL. He also, again, in a run-friendly scheme, did average 5.16 yards per carry on the 49ers, which is extremely impressive. Mason's new teammate in the Minnesota backfield is Aaron Jones, a veteran running back who's been a force in the NFL for a very long time. However, Jones is getting up there in age. He is 30 years old this season, which he may not fall off a cliff by any means, but his production could be a bit hindered by his age at this point. Let's also not forget that Jordan Mason is significantly heavier than Aaron Jones. We're talking almost a 20-pound difference. This makes Jordan Mason the way better option on the goal line. That means that Minnesota can punch in these short yardage situations in the red zone with ease, with Jordan Mason taking the carry instead of Aaron Jones. If Mason does a lot with this opportunity in terms of rushing yards, he may even see his role expand outside of that red zone. I would not be surprised to see him take on a larger role very quickly in this offense as the running back of the future. On Fantasy Pros, he is ranked as the RB31 in ADP. I think he's going way too late. I think his ceiling is around the top 20, but he'll most likely settle around the top 25 running back. But still, in a zero RB draft strategy, that is a very valuable player to be adding to your team at this point. If you can get a top 25 running back in the 8th round of your fantasy draft, you've gotten a major steal, and it really boosts your ceiling, especially if you focus on wide receiver in those earlier rounds. With the exception of David Montgomery, every single player I've listed in this video has the opportunity for a massively expanded role or a new role in the NFL in 2025. That's kind of the trend I see among all these players, and the trend you should be looking for running backs with a zero RB strategy in your fantasy drafts this season. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the Fantasy Trading Room YouTube channel for content like this every single week. That's all I got. My name is Joe, and this is Fantasy Trading Room.